having a good day. Today I'm going to prune both these cuttings. These cuttings were taken 14 months ago from the same tree. Sometimes when I mention that I have cuttings, you know, these were actually pieces of a stump that I took off that maybe had a little piece of aerial root there or whatever. But not these two. These two were actually saw cut. They were saw cut like off of my, they were cut off the largest tree that I have. I took 3 of them. I'm going to show you those pictures now. I took 3 cuttings. The first one didn't make it. This should have been the second one I showed in the pictures. And then this would be the third one, I think. And then, you know, here's a look at what the tree looks like now or whatever. I do have a couple videos on it. But anyhow, it's been like 14 months. I haven't really done anything with either one of them other than just like when I noticed that they were getting some long shoots coming off, I just kind of come by and cut them. I'll probably repot them next spring. I was hoping to leave them. This one I may leave a little bit longer in here. But I think it's worth a look just to see if I can start working on their nabari now while they're, you know, taking the time to kind of turn into something up here too. Should make some nice little sumos one day. I mean, they're not super thick, but again, that's kind of actually why I want to work on the nabari. This one was, I was having a hard time getting it to stand up. If you notice, it's got a thick branch on this side and a thick branch on this side. I was having a hard time getting it to stand up in a pot like this. So I wound up having to get it in here just so that it would keep from flopping from side to side while it took root. But anyway, they're both rooted in there really well. I put screens in the drain hole of both of them, so neither one of them I can like let it get an escape route or anything like that. All right, so we're going to start with this one. This one's actually a little less complicated than the other one, maybe a little bit easier to show you. And then on the other one, I can just kind of go through and tell you that I got the same thing in there. But if you can see here, I actually pruned right here. Don't really know when. I just noticed that it must have been getting really tall, so I just kind of come through and cut it. I always leave the leaves on so it gets plenty of shoots. And it has now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, I guess just 5 shoots coming off of it, but only one of them really has leaves. It happens to quite a bit of my cuttings, especially when I do that, and it just seems like it, you know, even here it's got a growing tip, and it's got a growing tip and a growing tip, but only here did it actually put out leaves. So my idea is I'm going to kind of get in here and just take out all the weak ones. I'm going to leave the growing tips since we are heading into winter, even though, you know, I'm in the tropics. I still don't want to work them any harder than they really need to. And again, if you missed any of my other, you know, sometimes the people with the, oh my gosh, what's wrong with my leaves? It just happens. I mean, I have actually that's a couple, and there's a couple that are just here in the pot or whatever. I mean, it is, you know, sometimes ficus just get old leaves and they just get rid of them. And that's the other thing I do. I'm not going to tip prune everything. I'm not going to defoliate, but I will take out some of the really older leaves. So here I got all those tips coming out, and I just cut them all off but the one. And you know, you prune for ramification, but you also prune for taper. So now, you know, this one a little bit thinner than that. Leave that branch there. This one has close to the same thing. You can even see, let's see if you guys can really see that. You can even see all of those old leaves still on there. I left all those old leaves on there so that it would, you know, the idea is that hopefully it'll get a sprout from all of them. And I got a sprout, you know, it even got one there, but now that's died back. You can see that just came off. So, again, just going to go in here and take out some of the weaker ones. Might leave 2 on this one. That one's got a leaf and that one's got a leaf, so I'll just leave all that. And again, just a couple of the older leaves. Alright, and then down here, got some straight up growth there. I can get rid of that. You know, that one too, there's no way to look at that other than it was going straight up. This one's kind of drooping off the bottom there. But I'll leave it. I'll just take off some of those older leaves. Again, if I don't repot it this spring, that could be a lower branch that may eventually end up getting some aerial roots on there, so I don't want to take the whole thing off. Plus, I left a lot of this lower growth so that this piece would get some taper. That's actually why I cut these longer pieces off of that other tree that I had. Just, you know, I was really timid with how much I chopped back on things. I've gotten a lot braver as things have gone on. I should have cut those all the way back the first time I chopped it. And then once again, this one has another one of those shoots that just has it's got a growing tip but never has put out a leaf or anything. So I'll just leave it to the one there. And then move over to this other side here. This piece down low. This one, now this is going down. This is going down and kind of coming up towards the sun. It's almost coming straight off there. It looks a little bit like maybe I had done some directional pruning at some point to get it that way. But that's super healthy. But then it's got 1, 2, 3, 3 shoots here with just the growing tip and no leaf. I'll take all 3 of those out. And then this one that comes off the side, I'll save that. This one that comes out of the bottom here, I think eventually that'll probably go, but right now that just seems to have so much of the tree's momentum and everything. There's so many leaves off there. I'll just let that go a little bit more. I'm wondering if that's splitting the trunk just from some growth there. Kind of hope so. Should add some little character to it, make it look a little bit older. And then there is a shoot up closer to the trunk here. Got a leaf there, I'll leave. And again, just a growing tip there. But it is coming out of the side. Actually, it's growing towards the other branch there. I think I'll just go ahead and take that out. You know what? Change my mind. I'm going to leave it there. But I'm going to cut that growing tip in the hope that maybe it'll grow a little back a little bit closer to the trunk. And then this piece, got the scar here. I'm going to treat this piece like a branch and this piece like the apex. So if that's a branch, that's coming right up off the side there. Or right up out of the top of it, sorry. And then that's just a little dieback. And I think that's all I'll do with that guy. Still haven't really picked a front. It's got to be that side. Or that side, I would think. Probably a little bit more like that. One nice thing about having a round pot is I can kind of look at it as at a bunch of angles. Alright, I'm going to do the same thing with this one. Take out all the weak shoots and everything. I have been kind of wondering about the algae on there. Hope it's not permanently harmful or anything. I think it's just because I water all these by hand. The other one sticks up out of there so I can water just the substrate. This one's just so close to it anyway. I think it splashes up on there a lot when I water it. Alright, and so now that I know the cuttings lived, some of this growth never really was all that good to begin with. This one was coming straight off the bottom. And so that's going to go. This one too. And then there's just a little dieback there. I could wait for the plant to just kind of reject that piece that was dying on its own. But if it's going to get a fresh bud off there or whatever, I'd like it to go ahead and do that. Again, just kind of take off some of these old leaves. This, I don't know if you guys can really see that all that well. I'm getting ready to cut that back. There's some dye back there. I would go ahead and cut that off too, but that's right on that edge of the scar. I think that this, the larger piece, will wind up, you know, being the apex and covering that scar up. But if I could just keep that little guy there, I could get a little more healing on that side of it. And then there is a little branch that went up and under, and definitely don't want that. And just in the interest of making sure that stays, I won't worry about cutting that piece too clean and letting that outgrow itself. There's another yellow leaf. Even this one's coming from the underside of this branch, but in the interest of wanting to make sure I keep something growing there, I'll just trim that off. I'm gonna cut the whole thing off. This is my thought process here. This was another spot where I pruned, left all those old leaves on, only got some really weak ones coming out, and then I got this taller branch, and I think what I'm gonna do is just cut that whole thing off. I left that leaf there, maybe it'll get a sprout off there. And I'll leave this just in the interest of wanting to, again, keep that branch. Just a little branch growing out of the crotch there. Let's see. Here's a piece here. Would have been nice to keep that whole piece. Of course, that's still, oh, I see what that is. I don't know if you can see it or not. This is a super long shoot coming from under it. I'm going to take that off. And now I kind of see what part of the problem was. That was kind of stealing the energy from these other upper parts. Die back there. I'll leave the rest of that. I'm hacking this thing up a little more than I thought I would, but so this piece is coming right out of the side of this. That actually had a little ramification there, but it's all dying back. So I'm just going to cut it back to that. Make that a side branch. And then I'll just go ahead and take the trident piece out of that. So, I really was expecting a lot more to be left of this when I was done with that, but you can see that algae I was talking about a little bit better now. But I think I left enough of the growing tips and everything. It should be fine. Definitely don't have a front pick for this one. I think when I repot this one, this spring, I'll make up my mind what I'm going to do with the other one, because this one I think really does need repotting. It shouldn't be in a pot this deep. That was just to hold it steady. And all right, so this is not what I set out to do. But the more and more I looked at it, the more and more just how deep this thing is there is kind of bothering me. I would just pull it up. It's fairly pot bound. It should just come out there all at once. I would just pull it up and put a little substrate in the bottom, put it back in there. But I've got that screen in the bottom, and I've actually already noticed a couple of my trees that, you know, especially just small cuttings and stuff, that I almost forgot that thing was in there. So I want to either get it out or get it out and put it back in the bottom. You know, either way. And then just get some substrate in the bottom and let it sit up in the pot a little bit higher. I'm not going to mess with the roots at all or anything. But when I take that screen off, it may not leave me much of a choice. Anyway, I'm going to ease it up out of here and just kind of see if I can maybe just perhaps get it to leave the screen behind. No, it definitely came with the screen. And so there, I got the screen off, and I'm just going to put that back in the bottom. I may just kind of hold it up and get some of this looser stuff just to kind of go on top of that screen from the top, because eventually that's what you want to expose anyway, is the top. All right. Pretty interesting. So I've exposed, about 3/4 of an inch of the cutting. Still haven't hit any real roots yet. Although you can see now where some are hanging over the edge, and I'm going to cut them off and allow them to go to the bottom. And then do the same thing. Got down to that much for a root ball there. Still haven't hit any roots yet. Alright, so I don't know what I'll edit out of what I just did there, but you probably heard some doubt in my voice when I was talking about just putting it back into here. I've gotten it down to this little much of a root ball. Haven't cut any roots off the bottom yet, and don't really intend to. Scrape some off the top. You can see that it does get these just really fine hairy roots on the top. You can see they're all kind of poking up now. And then I was thinking, like, since I had this literally undisturbed except for that little bit I cut around the edges there, why not just go ahead and get in a training pot? And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it in this guy here. So, you know, it's a little bit shallower, wider, so it's got room to spread out for the Nabari a little bit. But it's still nice and small, so it's not over potted or anything. And I'm going to go ahead, reuse a good bit of that. This was the older substrate that I used to use. Breaks down a little more than some of the new ones, but this is just one in training, so. Plus I'm going to use some of the newer stuff for the top. Kind of looked like a repot, but I really did not cut anything back other than a little edge around that was just kind of hanging over. But I think it looks much better now. Both of these really aren't too bad for being a 14-month-old cutting. Now that it's up there a little bit higher, when I water it, I can water just around the edges there. That won't get so much algae on it. You can see there, that branch I was talking about letting grow to take care of that scar. And hopefully the prune and everything else works out well. And then this other guy, now that I know what the roots on this one look like, I know I'm going to leave this one in here for at least another year. And there's the scar that it's trying to heal up there. That's the only one. This one has a lot stronger of an apex going on it, so I think it will soon. I was going to put some thick wire here And I was going to wire it to this branch, but I do actually remember at one point I broke that. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. I broke that, and I've been letting it heal just because I didn't want to lose any taper there. I wanted to leave that in there so that it would kind of thicken out down there. And then again, that's why I'm leaving that there, just for some taper too.